And welcome. It's January 27th, Wednesday, January 27th, and it's very cold here in Cincinnati, and I hope it's warm where you are. I'd like to start with a few things that are hot topics currently in the news, and I guess the question is: are we turning the corner on COVID? We're hearing that the new daily COVID cases are starting to slow down somewhat here in the U.S., but the question is it really a turning point? Nationwide in the U.S., new cases have fallen about 21% in the last 2 weeks, and that's good. Some experts have suggested that this could mark the start of the shifting of the course for the next 4 months of COVID. So as we look at the numbers are incredibly high. We have 25,500,000 cases, and we've had 425,000 deaths. On the good news side, the vaccine is coming into play, as we all know, and we're getting it out, not as fast as we liked, but we have received 44,500,000 distributions of the vaccines. And at this point in time, through yesterday, there was about 23,500,000 shots that had been given. So quite a lot of work still to be done, but it's moving in the right direction. Over in Europe, still under lockdown over there. No theme parks really are open at this point in time, and we're hoping that they will certainly be able to get open in the early spring. In California, some good news. They just lifted their stay-at-home order. Now, this doesn't mean that the theme parks can open in the very near future, but it is one step closer to heading in the right direction. Things in Asia, namely China, seem to be moving back to normal. They're really moving at a rapid pace over there. COVID has still taken its toll, as we know, but we saw this week that Ocean Park in Hong Kong is seeking billions of dollars more in funding to help revive their operation as they overhaul their business model to find a more sustainable future in Hong Kong. But other than that, things are moving in the right direction, certainly in Asia for our friends over there. One of the crazy things we saw this week is the protests continue to spread around the world. It's not germane to Europe and South America and America. There were protests in Russia, and 3,000 people were incarcerated during their protests this last weekend. And it just seems to be a lot of unrest around the world right now. I think one of the most difficult things that we've heard is that there was a threat on Efteling Park yesterday on social media. Social media was posting to riot, bring fireworks and bombs to the Efteling, and close it down. We've seen that there has been some disturbance there in the Netherlands over the last few days with rioting and other looting issues. So to our friends in the Netherlands at the Efteling, we certainly hope that nothing happens. The only other thing I want to talk about, it's a major issue here in the U.S. The new administration has been moving on a lot of items in the last week since inauguration, a week ago today. And one of the things that's most concerning to us as an industry is the increase in the minimum wage to $15. What they're proposing is that there would be an increase annually rising to $15 in 5 years. So next year, that would take the U.S. minimum wage, which is in the $7+ range, up to $9+. So could have a major impact on on our industry, and we're certainly going to be watching that, and I'm sure our association is going to be lobbying on that issue. Gives me great pleasure today to bring our next guest on, Ken Whiting. Ken's an amazing guy. He's been in the industry for a long time. His family's been in the industry for a long time. It's interesting. His dad started out selling custard out on the boardwalk at Santa Cruz back in the early 50s, and in Ken's resume, it talks about his start of peeling bananas. I thought I was at a low point taking tickets, but you and I started out about the same level, Ken. Ken's really, he's done an amazing job in the food industry and with our association. Back in 2008, he authored a book, Waves for the Teenage Workforce Success. And I've read it, and hopefully you have too. It's still germane today to our industry. He's evolved that in a second edition in the middle 2000s. So Ken has he's really been a stalwart in our industry. He received the Outstanding Service Award from IAAPA back in 2017. He was elected second vice chairman of IAAPA in 2019. And of course, because of COVID, we all know the officers and the board members remained intact for 2 years to keep continuity. So Ken will be taking over the reins from Amanda Thompson next November, or this coming November in 2022. And that will be a great time for him and for the industry. He's virtually served on, I don't even know how many committees in the industry, the association. I think one of his most personal accomplishments is he's a marathoner. He's competed in over 70 marathons and triathlons, and including Ken, the Ironman distance triathlon. So that's pretty daggone good. So happy to have you here today. Welcome, and like to start out with you. I know I've missed a lot of things from your 50-year history in the industry, but give us a little background, and then we'll move into a deeper dive on some questions on the food and beverage industry.
You bet I will, Dennis, and thank you for you didn't dig up any dirt, which I appreciate that. That was all pretty good stuff. There's a lot more out there. And hey, good morning or afternoon or evening, wherever everybody is today. I'll fill in just a couple of gaps just from a work standpoint. I am sitting right now at the Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk, which is 114 years young. I mean, you'd expect me to be a little biased, I'm sure, but it is an amazing property that honors the history and the legacy and the nostalgia, but is as relevant today as ever in terms of the entertainment and attractions that are offered. And all of the past is celebrated, and we always long-term view. The park is, has an expanded kind of geographical reach of visitors, but we're serving the greater San Francisco, Monterey Bay areas, which have also changed so much over the last generation, for sure. The park's got great leadership and always a long-term eye for the future, and it's a great place to be. My family, as you mentioned, my dad in early 50s was delivering milk here and as a milkman, and ended up buying a concession. It came up for sale at the time, and so that's begun a 70-year history for our family and a family business operating right here. Food and beverage concessions at the boardwalk. I did start as a banana peeler. I may end as a banana peeler too, but that That was my first job. Did that for as long as I needed to. And in a family business, you just do everything. And I'll just real quickly say that, you know what, when I got to an age where it looked like I might be doing this full time and really enjoyed the industry and the business, I was one of those people who didn't like to operate in a vacuum and thinking our way was the only way. So I just started to reach out to other parks and ask questions about what I might have seen on a visit there, and found people to be very open and friendly and willing to share. And that was certainly inspiring to me. And one guy from a park here in the Bay Area called, used to be Marine World, you remember that? And
Absolutely.
yeah, invited me to this gathering of food and beverage people that was happening. And I went because I'm a quick guy to say yes and figure it out later. And I walked into this room. I mean, the pillars of the industry were in that room. I was a young guy. I knew nothing, but people from Knott's Berry Farm and Cedar Fair and Silver Dollar City, Six Flags, San Diego Zoo, I think Kings Island, right in your backyard. We're in this room, and man, I sat in the back of it, didn't make eye contact with anybody, hoping that no one would ask me a question. Well, as it turned out, all of those leaders turned out to be mentors and friends of mine, and helped me immensely. That led me to going to IAAPA and volunteering anyway, lots, just been a continuum of things, kind of like those marathons I like to finish. It's just been this long, slow, steady level of participation of being involved in a variety of ways in our industry for a long time now.
Well, Ken, we know your name, and everybody does in the industry, and we know you travel around and speak and you reach out to the members, and it's greatly appreciated. And certainly IAAPA appreciates your support through the years, and we're looking forward to seeing you sit in the chair come November and take the reins. With that, maybe if you don't mind, I'd like to just ask you to give a little vision, if you would, about, you've had a little more time than most guys coming in or gals coming into the chair. What do you think your focus will be based on what we've experienced as an industry the last year or so?
Sure. So, I mean, and a couple of things I'll expand on just with IAAPA. Like I said, 1979, I went to my first one. I know that's not as long as you. I think you were calling out this was going to be your 50th year, right? So
yeah, it is 50.
You got me on that. But 79, and after a few years of going, I walked into the education office and just said, "How can I help?" And they connected me. You know, they were very helpful and willing. They connected me to somebody who might have been the chair of the Food and Beverage Committee or member. And in fact, he was from Kings Island, Dan Zimmer. You remember Dan
Sure.
Zimmer?
Oh yeah, he worked with me at Kings Dominion. He was my food service director.
He Dan was a great man. Kind of got me engaged with some things, and that just began this long history of committee participation and chairs and special projects. And I think I might have done the first webinar IAAPA ever did. It was in the early 2000s. And anyway, so I have had this long, steady view of the association. Been on the board for a few years now. In terms of the future, you know, I've got a lot to learn about what that looks like. For me, as I'm sitting here today, I would tell you it's about supporting the staff, finding out where I can be of a value and assistance to them. We've got a great strategic plan. So I hope, if anything, that I can keep us all focused on, are we pointed in the right direction, all of us together, right? And every chair, you've been chair of IAAPA, you know, we all stand on the shoulders of those that have gone before us. And
absolutely.
Right. And I've talked to a lot of past chairs and the leadership of IAAPA, and every chair comes in it with some, and I don't like the word agenda, but you know, some focus, some area of focus. Mine will be food and beverage, right? I mean,
good,
right? Mine has. I mean, that's who I am within our industry. So mine will be food and beverage as a focus for sure. And 100% what that looks like, I don't know. I would hope that maybe as an association we'll be able to expand. We'll be able to meet the members' needs at a increased level. IAAPA already delivers the best education, food and beverage education for the industry, period. It's phenomenal and extremely high value, and everybody knows. I mean, food and beverage represents. What do you think, Dennis? 30-40% of the revenue or profit of any property, and
yeah, absolutely. Well, that's our number 2 source of revenue in the parks.
So I think there's opportunity
growing
to hit that need a little bit more. I'll call out just recently, in fact, along those lines. I mean, just recently, like first of this year, the final agreement between IAAPA and the National Restaurant Association's ServSafe product. ServSafe is a safe food handling certification process. We formed a partnership with them, and now that is available through IAAPA at a discount globally. And so in the past, everybody went to another source for that. Now, food and beverage operators and teams can all go to IAAPA and save money for something they're already spending money on. So there's more to come in terms of what that looks like, in terms of how to globally serve the needs of IAAPA membership through food and beverage. But that's my vision, if you will, of what my area of focus might be beyond the simple business of IAAPA and supporting the efforts that the staff is doing. So,
well, that's great. I, you know this better than I. Probably no other industry globally, the service industry and the restaurant industry, have been hit harder by COVID. We were looking at some numbers, and what was the last number we saw? Revenues. It's just in Southern California, it's exceeding $10 billion now. The impact. And I guess I would ask you, Ken, first of all, great time to have you in the chair as an incoming food expert,
right.
Being the number 2, as I said, revenue generator for all parks and attractions, family entertainment centers, and Disney, all the way up. So what have you seen and what have you talked about with your colleagues, peers in the industry? What's their biggest concern at this point, and how to pull out of this and get back on the track? Give you an idea. J&J Snacks, which I'm sure you're familiar with, big company, public company, their net sales they did 241 million this last quarter, and they just reported I believe it was about a 15% decrease, and a $21 million decrease over the quarter last year. So that's just one company. Our friends at Coca-Cola and Pepsi-Cola and our friends in the meat business, they've all had the same thing. What are you hearing? What's the sense at this point in time, and how to pull out of the nosedive?
Well, from a food and beverage standpoint, I mean, obviously food follows attractions and follows attendance, so we'll really pull out when there's guests in the parks. One of the things is you just have me thinking. You mentioned J&J Snack Foods. They're a great industry partner. They own the icy company as well. The president of that company is a good friend of mine, and they work with us very well, along with the Coke and Pepsi companies that you called out. A couple of thoughts hit me as relates to food and beverage. One is, the COVID protocol calls to operate are kind of, I hate to use the word routine, but they're just kind of there right now. I mean, we kind of understand what we need to do for employees to keep employees safe and to keep the guests safe, and the process along the lines of that. So that will continue. I no doubt that'll continue. I think in terms of pulling out, you called out food and beverage being different from the FECs to the destination properties, and that's so true. It's not a one size fits all. There, I think in a conversation we were having the other day, that I'm an FEC that my audience comes from 30 miles away, and I'm in the property for 2 hours. Versus Disney, perhaps, where I'm there for 3 days, in the park for 12 or 15 hours a day. It's two entirely different experiences. So I think one of the things to move forward is every operator is going to need to really drill down on what they do. I mean, the staff has to be set up for success. I can't tell you how many kitchens I've walked into where that'd be the last place you wanted to be when it got busy. You know, everybody's scrambling. But staff's got to be set up for success, and every operator really got to know their numbers. I think menus will get simplified a little bit more than perhaps they already are, but quality will improve at the same time. It's going to be very unique and different, even around the world, where culturally there's different expectations on maybe more full service areas in some other parts of the world that isn't so attractive today. And how do we manage people not doing that? How do we manage a lot of guests not wanting to stand in a food line or engage with people? I think there'll be more cashless and more contactless payment systems established and utilized.
Absolutely. In fact, we're seeing that now. We've seen where Disney has announced that their contactless program, as well as Six Flags contactless program, Cedar Fairs, have all been accelerated because for the parks that have been able to open this last season somewhat, and where they've instituted the contactless, they've seen a rise in the food and bev per cap. And I'm assuming that's like you or I using a credit card where we say, I think I will buy that too. We'll add that on when we're shopping online. And I think that's going to be good. And it's going to continue. What are some of the other trends you might be seeing develop, Ken, in the food, and what are some of the protocols that have changed and are going to be with us now? I always say after 9/11, things were different. We've never traveled the same. Some things went away, but some things have remained now 21 years or 20 years. What do you see happening in the world of food service, both small and large?
Sure. Well, think about this. You mentioned 2001, 9/11. I look at it from a standpoint, think of airports back in the day, which were the last place you wanted to be and be hungry because you just got an expensive hot dog is all that was available, right?
Yes, that's right.
Look at airports today as they brought in national and regional brands and local companies to operate, and they lowered their price points and provided more variety and quality of service and product. All they saw was revenues go up immensely. People were coming early and hanging out. I think it moved to the sports stadiums and arenas next. I think they did a great job and were ahead of the curve, ahead of the theme park and amusement park.
Absolutely, they were.
In terms of cooking out in front of people and really adding additional types of products. But so now maybe we are trailing that, but we're there. The theme park and attractions world is now making food's becoming a marketable attraction. You're asking me about some trends. There's a lot more food events occurring. There might be a craft beer festival. We're going to have and still going to have in a COVID way, or the 40th annual Clam Chowder Festival right here at the boardwalk. But lots of parks are doing different food events of all types.
Yeah,
for sure, right, and making that an attendance draw. Quality is improving. I think when you had Richard Zimmerman on the other day, he even called out you couldn't believe he had a James Beard awarded chef right there in your backyard, the Kings Island. And
that's correct.
And I think the Fair properties as one have brought in chefs to every property.
Ken, do you see? You're absolutely right. That focus on the audibles that the parks had to call, Knott's Berry with their Taste of Knott's, and Disney with their Food and Wine Festival, which they've expanded through the years, and some other parks do that. Do you think that's something that's here to stay as a periphery type of thing that they'll fill with?
You know, you kind of hit on something there. Because of COVID, there's been a tremendous amount of creativity, right? Established and concepts tested. I would have identified Knott's Berry Farms events as maybe the most successful in the country based upon what I know. They did a great job of using their venue in a meaningful way, and made food was the attraction. I think that's remarkable. There was I remember early on, maybe last April, a water park down in Texas, Typhoon, Texas, in the Houston area. They had this barbecue restaurant that circumstantially you could drive through the park, go right by it, and drive out the back of the park. So they instantly were able to activate that and promoted that, and people could drive right in, pick up their barbecue meals, and go home. Anybody that had a food truck or a food trailer in their parks, or from a fair and festival world, they were figuring out ways to set up shop in temporary manners. My God, I know in our case, we've done food delivery through the third party company. That might stick around with the curbside pickup and food delivery. We started doing some wholesaling of some unique products.
You have what, over 20 different locations at Santa Cruz?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, a couple dozen. And so it's a. I think a lot of what's being tested and tried this year, what I was calling out early on, was that so many parks, ourselves included, had this gift of time. We had our full-time teams available without doing what they typically do so well, because we were closed. And so we did a lot of brainstorming and were able to kind of look at how we operate and how we might want to operate in a post-COVID world. And I think food's going to become a bigger piece of all of that going forward.
Ken, I'm going to go back and forth. I've got some things I want to ask you, but there's a lot of questions rolling in. So if you don't mind, we're going to hit you with these. And since we have so many, just kind of move through them as you can. It says, this is from Paula. It says, attractions have utilized national and regional restaurant brands throughout the years. How does bringing in an outside operator improve F&B? And will we see more of this as parks look, this is important, to cut costs? What type of foods do you think lend themselves to this kind of branding?
Sure. Well, I will tell you, one of the most controversial topics in my life, 30, 40 years now at least, has been the use of brands. There are people hell-bent against it. No way, no how. We'll never do that. Others have fully embraced it and have found much success with that. So it goes either way. Will we see? I'm just thinking here out loud about what might be the best uses. I know that if you want to hit certain day parts, that matters. If I want to do something at breakfast, there's some places that brought in, the Cinnabons or some other places that will generate some spending. I think some ethnic kinds of foods are better tested, and guests will have more preconceived confidence in testing some new types of food from a brand that they are aware of.
Do you think parks will be looking for ways to offset some of that labor? Because labor is our single biggest expense, and food service is certainly the number two.
I hear a lot. Everybody's really concerned about labor this year in terms of, I think just in the large part, not wanting to make that commitment. So the use of brands goes two ways. I'm either licensing them and operating them myself, or bringing in somebody else. So if labor's a higher priority, you're going to want to look for somebody that you can, bring in for them to operate. Others are going to operate themselves. But there's a right way to mix brands in, and I don't know, Dennis. I don't know if there'd be an increase in that. Honestly, I think that it's more about parks, people's plans, what they want to do, and
Yeah, I think Paula's focus here was, could that offset costs for the parks to help them in the short term?
Sure, if somebody else is operating, yeah.
Here's another good one, and this I can't wait to hear you on this. It says, Mr. Whiting, this is from Jennifer. How has carnival food variety affected parks and attractions? We typically think of these types of operations of deep frying everything in the world. Is this influencing food service items in the stationary parks and attractions business?
Yeah, I think the food and the fair and festival world is a tremendous incubator for new food items, where all these independent operators and concessionaires are out there just fighting, for every dollar, and they're always trying to come up with something new, and some things stick and some things don't. I do think, and even I think this answers this question, those indulgence kinds of foods, those items I can't get outside of the amusement park. I mean, the funnel cakes, right?
Yeah.
Those kinds of items, are they influencing parks and attractions? Absolutely. I mean, that's where, when you walk in, everybody checks their typical diet kind of off their minds when they walk into the front gates of a park, and they want to experiment and have some fun, and food becomes part of the attraction, combined with having a great place to dine. But again, it depends on what kind of property you have. If I'm that FEC on the main drag with every quick serve restaurant right out the front door, I want to feature more of those unique, fun, indulgence, maybe even carnival foods that all those other places don't have. So
we know too that we've seen this. I have since I was at Coney Island. People come to a park and they throw out their inhibitions and their diets.
Yes.
And it's the caramel corn and the Belgian waffle and whatever that you can think of.
It's part of the mindset that
it's part of the experience.
Part of the experience that you kind of want to go with that. Absolutely.
Here's another question coming in from Phyllis. It says, Ken, you may know her. Buffet service in parks was impacted due to COVID, as you know. What are your thoughts on the future of buffets returning to restaurants in our parks?
Phyllis, if you got one, don't plan on reopening it anytime soon. Yeah, I don't. Until COVID's way in the rearview mirror, I think that that's not going to happen.
Here's another one. This is from Tom. He says, Ken, how do you feel about mobile carts? Have they changed in recent years? How will they be in the future? Are they still the impulse buy that they once were?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, carts or smaller kiosks, what we want to call it, have a great way to capture that impulse spend, and also provide the opportunity, particularly if they're mobile, to be able to, when crowd sizes are higher, you can get them out there, and when it's lower, they can disappear when you don't need them. But they are all about single couple item menus that are unique, that I can sell very quickly, and to capture that impulse spend. So.
Here's another one. It says, Ken, and this is from a Ken, so maybe you know him. There are two of you in the industry. He says, we've all heard of entertainment, where the idea of food and the act of eating can be a part of the entertainment experience and attractions. Many attractions have used themed foods as ways to create different worlds. Do you think we've seen that happen at Disney? Do you think this will carry on into the other attractions that are operating? Food's already in the middle of the entertainment, so
to have a whole separate place, kind of like what was one of the chains that used to be out there, I guess still is, like Rainforest Cafe or something.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't see that being plugged into the middle of too many amusement parks, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
we are the entertainment place. However, I was just reading about, in fact, one of your past guests and past IAAPA chairs, Roland Mack, commented on this when he was on your podcast about a new restaurant concept that they're coming out with. And I was just reading about that, and I'm not in a position to really describe what it is because I don't understand. But it's all about creating an experience within the restaurant with the food and where the food comes from, and creating, making that, an entertainment experience. So I think that, I don't, I think that's a unique application, but it is occurring where it can. But I think the main thing is food's already there in the middle of the entertainment setting.
Yeah. I think Disney and Universal have done a great job of this at Harry Potter and with their Fantasyland expansion, where not only the rides are themed and some of the other attractions, the merchandise, but they've also done a great job of creating the food that ties into that whole area and section. Let's take, Ken, whoever had a butter beer, you read about it when they opened Universal Studios. The first season they did $5 million in butter beers, which was just a soda. It was a butterscotch soda with a little ginger ale or something in it, I think.
That's $5 million a year. That's pretty good, right?
That's on one little drink.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, I think that item, that's what I was going to call out. Has that been 10 years? Maybe it's been 10 years since that.
2010. Yeah.
Oh, well, exactly then. So I think those parks, any parks that's got any IP is really merging and marrying and synergizing food and beverage and merchandise with all of it. And I think when Harry Potter and Butterbeer came into Universal, it got a lot of people's attention.
Thank you. Here's another good one. No name on this. It says, Ken, your thoughts on adding variety versus streamlining menus?
So I think there was a time in my life and your life, Dennis, where less was definitely more. And I would still suggest that that's the case. We're going to have smaller menus than a restaurant in town, right? Simply because speed is a value that our guests require, and we do so much impulse business as well that if you're too complicated, and on impulse, if people get a second chance to think about something, they might not buy it. So there's still that fine line between a limited menu now being confronted with the headwinds of guests wanting more variety. There's a lot more foodies in the world, right? A lot more variety and quality, and being able to deliver it. I think that on some meals, guests are going to be willing to wait a little bit longer. I think on impulse, it still needs to be very simplified for sure. So it's walking a little bit of a balance, and I think that there'll be more line extensions. If you sell hot dogs, you sell hot dogs with lots of different toppings and options. Same with like a pizza, as opposed to totally different menu items. And it'll be some more presentation cooking and things like that to do the attraction. But so it's walking the fine lines, knowing who your customers are and what they want, right?
Sure. For
the most part,
and we know there are certain foods that are germane to different regions of the U.S. and Europe and South America, and we've seen it in the parks we visited. I've seen some things that I would consider very strange in South America being sold, but the queue line is crazy. I think the best example of entrepreneurialism I've ever seen is we were at the opening of Shanghai Disney, and they presented the turkey leg at Shanghai Disney. Chinese had never seen this before. Ken, the line was probably, and I'm not exaggerating, probably Doug Stagner and a lot of guys were with us. And we stood there and watched this for half an hour, maybe a quarter of a mile long.
Isn't that crazy?
And people were waiting like that hours. So here's where the enterprise came in capitalism. The people at that point in time, Disney hadn't figured this out, obviously their first week, and people were buying 4 and 5 turkey legs. So what they did was, those who bought 5, maybe they only wanted 2, they took 3 and went back to the rear of the line and sold them for triple the price to the people who were waiting. And I said, that's capitalism at its best. But there was the 2 things: good capitalism and introduction of a new one. This is got another question for you. This is from Brooks, and Brooks says, Ken, where do you see self-serve, aka vending, fitting into parks and FECs?
Well, self-serve, if we're talking about somebody walking around and vending, there might be some slowdown on that. I think there might be a COVID response to being able to do some foods in that fashion. Self-serve, and self-serve beverages, to think about that, which is a pretty big category for most parks, frozen beverages or soft drinks and the like. There's some technology that's in place that can deal with that, or you have to add labor to the exercise and make it not self. But there's technology that will make the interaction with self-pour beverages be contactless, and that's in play right now. And I think we'll see more and more of that. Again, as labor is viewed always very closely in how can we function with less, self-serve is going to be very much focused on, for sure, in terms of that. I think grab and go locations, I think having a cashier and letting somebody go in and just grab things that are already prepared, and I think will grow in popularity. A lot of people have suggested to me that, again, because of a COVID response, maybe more prepackaged foods may find a home of
we see that in the airports next to the bookstores and things like that.
That's a good example right there.
Your sandwich, yeah. And
So
if we're in a rush and we don't want to stop and sit down or something, we get our little sandwich and throw it in our pocket and eat it on the plane.
That's a perfect example, and I see a growth in that for sure.
Here's another one from Mark. He says, as an awareness of sensitivity to gluten and celiac disease grows, how has this impacted your menu operations? It says, one of my family members has a gluten sensitivity, which turned my attention to this issue, which is not always easy to satisfy at parks and attractions. So the gluten and celiac issue, it's with us.
Mark, I empathize, and it's with us. It's a real thing. And I will tell you, there are some properties that I'm aware of that do a phenomenal job at it. They may even have a separate location, if they have that kind of a infrastructure, a separate location, that everything in that location is gluten-free or consistent with other dietary needs. And everyone in that park and in that location is trained to deal with it effectively. Others, if you let them know ahead of time, will make sure everything's available. I know in our case, we call out on the website and whatnot what is available. But at the same time, from an operating standpoint, it's a challenge to get it right. It's not a worry about doing it; it's a worry about doing it wrong, and what the impacts of that is. We're really good at when we do a lot of the same thing over and over again, and when all of a sudden you have unique things and you're all about guest service. The worst guest service we could ever provide is getting it wrong when it's that big of a deal. So it's like everybody's aware and wants to meet that need at the level that their operation provides, and that goes back to the kitchens and the equipment and the staff and the training and that's available at those sites. So it's not ignored. It's very, very much aware. And of course, in a property that might not offer it, I would imagine that folks could bring necessary foods in with them as well.
I remember when I was sitting in the general manager chair, I think I was at King's Dominion. I remember that Sesame Place in Langhorne, Pennsylvania, which was owned by Bush and SeaWorld today. They made probably the first and strongest attempt in our industry to bring healthy foods to the guest. Well, it didn't work back then. They were way ahead of their time. People weren't talking about celiac, and they weren't talking about gluten at that point in time. And I think they tried it for a season or two, and then I think they went back to the corn dog and the candy apple and some of the other things. So, but the time is here now, and your point is well taken. Here's another one that says, "Hey Ken, dining plans, particularly for season pass holders. We know you don't have that necessarily at Santa Cruz, but how do you see those? How important do you see those being in the F&B programs, in attractions, and do you see these programs as great ways to increase revenue?" And the second part of that is, do you think that food and beverage revenues will ever become the number one source of revenue in the parks?
Yeah. I'll answer the last one first to provide my opinion. I think that the gate will always be the number one revenue stream.
I agree.
That's just off the top of my head.
Yeah, I agree.
Never say never. Never say never. As a food guy, I'd like to see it not food be higher, but that would be a stretch.
Yeah. Dining programs.
Yeah, you bet. So and attached directly to that, what you alluded to, and you've seen such a change in this. Think about the growth and the impact of simply having season pass holders in parks when the time when they didn't even rec program didn't exist. So for a property that's got strong season pass holders or membership base or just lots of regular customers, the all season dining programs that probably I think Six Flags launched a number of years ago now originally was geared to get spending from a group that wasn't buying meals in the parks.
They were eating before they came or after they left.
They're too familiar. They would come. They knew where they were going to eat afterwards. They knew where they were going to eat before. That's exactly right. In the park, I'd get something to drink. I'd get an ice cream, a funnel cake, something, but not a meal. So, and season pass attendance it's 50% ish of plus or minus or higher, right?
A little bit higher. Yeah. So, certainly like, Six Flags and Cedar. Yeah.
So all of a sudden those parks have to manage to that audience, and the season pass holders, yes, it generates new revenue. It was focused on a spending category, meals, that they weren't participating in at a very high level. So it was a genius idea. And there's a lot of nuances to programs that make it work or not work to its maximum, but it works. To the point where there's a lot of places that have had to rebuild restaurants and everything else because of the capacity was built for the prior model, and all of a sudden there's so many meals going out that they don't have the capacity, too long the waits.
Here's another question, Ken. It says, now that we live in the constant world of food shows on TV, celebrity chefs, has this had an impact on the F&B and attractions expectations? And why haven't more parks brought exhibitions of celebrity talent into the parks because everybody loves it?
Yeah. So I guess I'm not 100% sure why we ourselves and lots of others haven't brought in celebrity chefs for demonstrations. I don't know. That's a new idea and something worthy of consideration. I agree totally, though, that we are in a the Food Channel and all of the other food exhibitions. And I mentioned earlier, though, about how food events have become and will become an increasing amount, in my opinion, marketable attractions. I mean, the quality is on the rise, and more visible presentation cooking is occurring in parks. I know I've done with a business partner. I've done a lot of food and beverage consulting. I mean, I'm an operator first, but I've been asked to go out to a lot of places, and a lot of locations that have tried to put something grand on their menu, maybe very culinary based. They don't have the wherewithal to pull it off. Their staff's not trained for it well, or the equipment's not right, and it blows up on them. So you've got to know what your capabilities are. But I do believe as food quality and food presentation and food variety increases in the manner that it can be delivered well to guests consistently, then you'll see increased spending. Yes.
Here's one more. It says, over here on the East Coast, where it's cold, unlike where you are. Well, it might be a little cool out there with that storm that came through. How do you think the impact that of the restaurants having to rearrange their indoor feeding and capabilities to outside will impact the business? And do you think it's changing the habits of the consumer? And could this have an impact on parks?
There may be some great lessons learned from all the outdoor dining that's been done. And there might be a long transition period between getting through COVID and out of it and having it in a rearview mirror. But I think a lot of parks have outdoor patios and seating already. If we see that we need more, there'll be more, right? But I think folks will get back into dining rooms when they can. I don't know what I'm not sure what the takeaway is on that. Thank God restaurants had the ability and were given space out on sidewalks or on streetscapes to build outdoor restaurants or outdoor tents and patios, whatever was needed, so they can do some business. Because you mentioned it earlier, but the hospitality industry, restaurants, amusement parks, hotels, it's been a tragic year for them business-wise.
Well, I'll give you a great example of calling a major audible at the highest level. I'm going to name drop here for a second, but a good friend of mine's Danielle Ballou in New York, the #1 chef in New York. He, Jean-Georges, and some of the other guys. And Danielle, at his restaurant, he has 18 restaurants around the world. He actually built cabanas for his Michelin 3-star restaurant out on the sidewalk, like you said, in New York City, where Ken and Dennis can go and spend $800 on a meal and eat outside in a cabana. Now, if that isn't an example of ingenuity, and will he do that in a year from now if things go back to normal? I don't think so. I mean, when I go to Danielle, I want to sit inside and have a nice.
I want to sit inside.
I did too. So maybe that answers that person's question. Got it. We're getting close to the hour here. I've got a couple of more. Well, we got more than a couple. It says, this is from David. He said, with sustainability becoming so important to visitors, what emerging trends do you see in food service to meet this expectation? Sustainability becoming important to visitors.
I might know who that David is, and if I do, they do an excellent job and set a wonderful example. Sustainability in all things is growing, right? And so in the parks and attractions world, in foods and beverage specifically, it's everybody's doing more than they used to, right? I mean,
yes, absolutely.
Plastic straws are a felony here in California, I think, but everything needs to be able to be compostable, recyclable. It's top of mind. A short answer is it's top of mind, and where opportunities and our suppliers and manufacturers come up with more solutions for that as well, that we're able to take advantage of and utilize. We will do just that. We be in our industry. So
this kind of tagged this next question from Sarah. It says, Ken, did you or do you know, or do you now have a plan in place as it relates to food ordering and disposal in a COVID world if you cannot open? Did we leave out a word or two there? I'm not sure.
I'm not sure if I got it 100% right, but right. I mean, in our case specifically, and I know this is happening with a lot of places that are closed, they're using their kitchens as ghost kitchens or cloud kitchens and doing delivery out of them. And we're doing curbside pickup and food delivery here from the Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk right now. You can order online today, and Uber or somebody will drive it out to you.
Yeah.
So the answer to that is yes. That technology is available. It's there. It's pretty easy to implement, and so yes, we'll sell anything we can.
I'm going to keep moving because we only have a couple of more minutes and we have more questions than we have time. It says, and you don't have to list all of these, but it says, hey, Ken, what would you say are the top 10 food items for offerings that a theme park or amusement park or an FEC should do? It says, we probably know these, some of these: corn dogs, hamburgers, hot dogs, funnel cakes, popcorn, French fries. Can you add anything to that you see coming online?
Yeah, the one, I think different versions of all of those might come online, but whoever asked that question has answered a big piece of them. Look, on the meal side, it will always be chicken tenders, pizza, burgers, and hot dogs as the big items, right? On the snack side, it's churros and pretzels and other things that people can do well, that show well. You need things. There's a lot in the presentation these days that really matters, particularly on the snack and dessert side. Beverages, craft beer is growing. Alcohol is the #1 trend. So there's one that he didn't call out in different forms. But alcohol within parks is clearly the number1 trend. Everybody that got craft beer locations seems like.
I'll drink to that.
Yeah, you will.
Okay.
But I think that the improvements in those and how you do those, but with all that said, every regionally, people find different things. We have a crepe location here at the boardwalk that does exceptionally well, and that's way on the fringe of those core items. But our guests love that. So
you stay with the core. There's always the core that you mentioned, and some of these other items we know. And I guess you try things, you add them, you subtract them as you see if something becomes a signature. The classic example I think of is and the first one I ever had was at Disney in California, was a chocolate covered banana. Yeah. I don't know how many, 45, 47 years ago. And whoever thought of sticking a stick in a banana, dipping it in chocolate, rolling it in nuts. And as you remember, they couldn't keep up with them.
You're talking my language now. I mean, that's how I got my start, peeling bananas.
Was it for the chocolate covered banana?
And any signature, and that product's been sold on the boardwalk here for 80 years, I think. I would recommend that anybody find signature items, create signature items, make them your own. Right down the street from you, you probably have something to do with it. When the Smurfs were at Kings Island, the blue soft serve started.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We couldn't keep it,
and there was a riot. So the only place I can get my blue soft serve is at Kings Island.
That's right. All we did was color it, and you couldn't keep enough in service. Well, Ken, we're coming on the top of the hour. It says, you've discussed a lot about F&B today, and I guess I would ask you if you could sum it up maybe by just giving us what you believe might be a couple of the F&B trends that are you see on the horizon. I think, first of all, let me make one quick comment. It's very hard to go too deep in a short period of time with a lot of different questions.
So I think you'll probably offer this, but if anybody's got other questions, I'll be pleased to answer them. So
Yeah, we're going to do that actually. Pam will send those to you and then we'll put them in our ITPS daily news. Yes.
excellent. I think that a couple of trends. I think that food and beverage will end up getting more investment as revenues and profit grow. I think it'll get more investment into it. Oftentimes it's a trailer in terms of the roller coaster getting paid for, the expansion paid for, but it'll get some money to it. I think the technology, the mobile apps,
Yep.
a shameless plug. Next Thursday, IAAPA is offering a webinar on mobile ordering. Go to IAAPA.org and check that out, but sign up today.
Yeah.
Mobile ordering and food and beverage specifically, but I think we'll see much more of that, and we'll see an improved variety and quality and presentation in food and beverage. I mean, we just have to, as a whole, wherever the starting line is for everybody, step up the game and create those signature items and have some fun doing it.
Well, I think the day of the sweaty hamburger in a styrofoam box being handed out to you is long gone, and maybe it's taken us a little long to get there, but it's gone for good. Ken, I'm going to thank you. I want to just say a couple of things before I come back to you, if you won't. Last week I forgot to mention the upcoming guest. I'm not going to do that today. On February 10th, we have Jerome Nipels. He's the owner and managing director of JNL. He's a lot of us know him from around the world. Enterprising young guy, very active in IAAPA. He's been in the industry since 1996, and he served on a lot of the committees. And he's gonna bring some of the European and the Middle Eastern experience, what's happening in rides and attractions there. Then on February 24th, we've had a incoming president,
Yes.
Ken Whiting. We had a sitting president, Amanda Thompson, and we have a past president coming in, David Rosenberg. And David's a good friend and a longtime supporter of the industry. As we all know, he's at the Monterey Bay Aquarium, and he's going to come in and talk about that sector. They've had a equally rough time as the outdoors, and he started back at the Walt Disney organization, so he's going to provide us his insight on what he sees happening in that area. And then on March 10th, I'm happy to say that we've got a great lady from our industry coming in, Francine Gonzalez. She's the Chief Experience Officer with Whitewater West Industries, and she just this month she's executive VP of Business Development there, and Francine has served on many committees. She's backed us up on different programs in the industry, and she's been involved with the ASTM and AIMS, and so she's going to join me, and we'll be putting this out in the ITPS Daily News, and we hope that everyone who's with us today can come back and register. So, Ken, I want to thank you very much. With the number of questions that are still coming in, you're going to have a half a day of just answering questions and getting back to us. We will. Well, that's how important food and beverage is to our industry, and everybody knows it.
Yes.
It is. So thank you very much, and really appreciate it. And after we get through COVID, we'll get you back at some point in time in 2021, maybe early 22, just to see how things have changed from our discussion today. I always like to sum it up and say, if we don't have fun, how can we sell fun? And you certainly sell it in the edible and drinkable way. And that's a huge part of the reason people come to us. The other thing is we're not here for a long time. We're here for a good time. And we work in a wonderful industry, the best that I know. We don't put smoke in the skies. We don't pollute the streams. What do we really do at the end of the day is the millions of people that come to us, we put smiles on their faces, and we create memories that last a lifetime. So I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Thank you, Pam, Sean, the rest of the crew here for helping us get this together. Thank you, Ken, again. And we'll talk to everyone soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.